In this video, we'll have a look at our shapes field list. We will use it for clustering, sorting, aggregating, or even hierarchical clustering of our data. Welcome to the world of holistic efficient solutions. As always, this video is uncut. We start from scratch, starting slowly. You will find the field list right here, and you have to expand it in order to see it. And the field list is the crucial element of control for the perspective that you will find right below it. Now, in order to be able to show you something, as always, we have to insert some data to start with. We will just again use a little helper filling in a couple of rows, nothing spectacular, and it will soon be filled in. And now, since the last record is just a dummy, we will do away with it. And the first one is actually carrying the proper field names. And the moment I click here, you have to watch out that in the field list, the unnameds will be replaced with the proper field names over here. Good. Now let's have a short explanation of the field list as you see it here. So the top left is the so-called unused block. Whenever there's a field in, it's just not used for the perspective. Then we have the column cluster or header block, which is currently empty, and we have a row cluster block, which you see here, which holds right now the pseudo field rank. And at the bottom right, we see the so-called aggregates block, which currently holds all the user fields right next to each other. This is the default configuration, which results in the most natural default perspective as you see it over here, since rank is some sort of line number, and having it in the row cluster block, it means that every distinct line number record shows up in a separate row. This is just visualizing the different records row by row over here, and in every row carrying all the characteristic values of the user fields like you see it over here. Now, some things you can immediately do is, for example, changing the layout of the aggregate block, for example, pulling the aggregate in the second line, and then all of a sudden every record over here in the rank will have two lines actually the very same as in this template over here. You can pull almost any configuration as you like, and as always you can of course have a closer look in the perspective over here, but that's not the focus of this video here. We focus on the field list. There are several shortcuts you will find over here. We will not explain all of them because they're mostly self-explanatory. The most important ones are, one of them is the diagonal mirroring, which is actually the transpositioning of the data of the field list template and also, of course, of the full perspective. So the moment you click here, everything gets flipped via the diagonal, meaning that the rank in that configuration right now is the column headers, and also the aggregate block is changed accordingly, making the table rather broad. You can just click it again and then we're back to normal. So not normal, but just the way we had it before. If you want to get back to normal, you just click normalize and then we're back to the standard configuration more or less. We can also click on empty, which actually moves all the fields into the empty block. You still will see something in the perspective, namely the total number of records. Even if there's nothing in the header blocks or in the aggregate block, we will still see how many records we have here. If we move the rank out and leave the rest inside, you will also, for the fields, for the regular fields, see at least the number of records behind it. And if this is a field where all the values are having a number value and can be summed up, you will see both. You will see the number of records behind it and also the field values summed up to it. So that's the basics for the field list. Now let's make it a bit more useful. We will use the quarter as a column block, for example, and the project in the row headers and the person below, and let's move the rank out, and then all of a sudden the data looks like this. So from left to right we have the quarters, and from top to bottom first we have sorted by projects alpha beta, and inside every project we have sorted by the persons, and in this data actually we have also both people here You might wonder what those check marks are for. Again, you see it in the status bar already. They are for sorting order. If it's checked, then it's sorted ascendingly. If you decheck it, uncheck it, then it's sorted in descending order. And you immediately see in this field list configuration how your data is actually being sorted and is configured to be shown. Now I think we saw almost all the fields in here. It's just those two that we skipped. So you know this is the column header block, this is the row header block. You see level 1, and in here we see the empties for level 2 again. Now a use case for that, let's maybe pull in the project over here. Let's move the allocation out, and let's imagine for the time being that quarter is maybe some sort of task state and project is maybe some sort of task that needs to be done by the appropriate person. So that's not quite what we would like to have, because you see we have some collisions in here that in some intersections, for example, Alice in quarter 4 actually has 2 tasks right now. So in order to resolve that, the usual reflex is always pulling in the rank over here. But now again, that's probably not what you want to have, since right now we have only 1 record per line in here, and it makes the table rather sparse and big. So for that we can pull in the rank in the next level actually. And now we have to have a closer look. What we actually did here, we have started nesting perspectives. So if we have a look at Q4 and Alice maybe, we see that there is a Q4 and Alice, and this opens sort of a big cell, you can imagine, and inside this big cell we make another perspective, and the perspective inside has row clusters by rank, no column clusters, and then the aggregates of the project, which results in having 4 for the rank, 5 for the rank, and alpha and beta for the corresponding projects actually. And this works also for bigger data, and also works for more levels even, if you like. The moment you pull the first field inside a higher level, you will again see placeholders if you want to extend it and make a higher level still. So in that case it doesn't look that much different. Actually it's just the field list that gets bigger, but the perspective actually stays the same. So I think we've had a look at most of the configuration and configuration possibilities of the field list, and of course there's more to embrace, but that'll be another story.